Today we're talking real estate in your financial plan, specifically housing. I want to share an example with you on how to think about affordability as you work through this process. Look, I know it's frustrating right now. Home prices are at all-time highs. Interest rates are high, making the loans even more expensive. So it's really a frustrating experience for a lot of would-be home buyers. And really, this is a big decision point. It's a big asset. So we want to make a smart decision around this, something that's going to help you in your long-term financial plan, not hurt you or hinder you as you try to reach some of your other goals. Too often, there are just few parties involved in the decision-making process with your housing purchase, right? And that can be your real estate agent and your loan officer. Now, if you have a great agent and a great loan officer like the ones we partner with, they're going to lead you in the right direction. They're going to give you objective advice, be a consulting partner and say, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. I don't think this is affordable. But too often that's not the case, and it's really about the transaction. And we kind of get this into the state of limbo where I think it makes sense, but I'm not really sure, right? It feels a little expensive, but I think we can do it. That's what we want to avoid here, right? And we can do that by putting things in context within your financial plan. So how much should we spend on housing? In my mind, 25% is kind of the number that we want to stick to, right? 25% of your gross income on principal and interest, taxes and insurance, maintenance, anything else that goes into the cost of housing for you. If you can stick to 25% or below, you're going to be in a really good position to be able to fund your other goals and enjoy your lifestyle. If you start creeping above that, it can work, but it can be a little more difficult. You have to make choices, okay? Now, lenders, of course, they'll give you up to 40%, more than 40% of your gross income on a loan. They don't much care about anything other than your ability to repay that. Just to put more context here, if your taxes are 20, 25%, and you have other goals of retirement, paying for kids' education, lifestyle expenses, right? It doesn't leave much in the budget if you're spending such a significant amount on housing. That's why we want to keep that context. Let's look at a couple key data points real quick. So first of all, I want to show you the 30-year mortgage rates. Okay, this is a current chart of the national average for the 30-year fixed mortgage, a little over 7%, as you can see from the chart. We have to go back to 2001, 2002 to see rates consistently around that 7% mark. And then if you go beyond that, rates were higher, much higher in the 90s and the 80s. Now, that's a long time, right? It's more than 20 years we're talking about. So it's no surprise that current home buyers, would-be home buyers, aren't really receptive to hearing rates used to be much higher. Well, it was a long time ago, right? And things have changed significantly in that time period. But fact is, rates could stay higher for longer. I don't see us going back to the 3% days that we were so fortunate to have just a few years ago. All right, and the reason for that is inflation is sticky. The Federal Reserve has indicated they're going to keep a higher interest rate policy for longer. So that whole theory, a lot of people are throwing out there like buy today and refinance, maybe, but I don't think rates are going to come down significantly. So you need to price in exactly what the scenarios could look like if that's part of your decision-making process. Don't bank on a big reduction in rates and a big cut to your mortgage payment if you're able to refinance. So the second part of this that I want to look at, some more data, is just a quick example, right? So we saw where rates are, where they're likely to be. They're likely to stay higher for longer. How much has affordability changed in just the last 2 years? And how should you think about this when you're making your own decision? All right, so let's say you wanted to buy a house for $1.5 million, and we're gonna keep this simple. You're gonna put $400,000 down, you finance $1.1 million, 30-year fixed mortgage. All right, we just said rates are at 7%. So if we run our numbers here, as you can see on the note sheet, $1.1 million at 7% for 30 years, your payment's gonna be $7,318 a month, almost $88,000 a year, $87,816 a year. Okay, so a big chunk of money. So that $87,000 to get to 28% of gross income, you would need a household income of $313,628 to be there, right? So that's a pretty high household income. Right? In contrast, 2 years ago, just for sake of affordability, that same loan at 3.5% would cost you $49.39 a month, $59,268 a year. So it's a big jump, right? It's a big jump. It's all interest expense. It's all going to the bank for interest expense. Now that $59,000 divided by 28%, that would give us household income needed of $211,671 to stay at 28%, right? So that's a 50% difference, right? From 2 years ago to today and what you need in income to sustain that same percentage, okay? So that's a big deal. Now, if you're still trying to be in the same market that you were 2 years ago, we're gonna have a problem, and this is why. Now your new payment based on a 7% mortgage, $87,000 a year, divided by that same income you were making 2 years ago, if income hasn't changed that much, it's now 41.5%, right? Versus 28%. That's a huge jump in affordability, right? A big chunk out of your budget. And maybe you can still get the financing on that. Maybe the numbers haven't changed quite that much on you, but maybe you're 35%. It's still a big chunk of money to allocate towards housing. Okay, so that's the context we want to create before we make any decisions and see what you're okay with, what you're not okay with. How much of a priority is it? How much are we willing to sacrifice? I mean, we know the wages have increased, but they haven't increased 50% over the last 2 years. So there's still going to be some delta in here. So just to kind of wrap this up, I just wanted to give you that context to show you exactly how much the affordability has changed. And so maybe you're in a different market now based on interest rates. Maybe we just show patience. I don't know what the right answer is. It's different for everyone, but you have to just work through the scenario, look at the numbers so you can understand what they are, and then make your decisions from there, establish your priorities. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just trying to give you some guidelines here, help you make a good decision. So don't sign on the dotted line there without knowing the exact numbers and how it fits in to the rest of your financial plan. I hope you found this helpful. And if you have, would appreciate giving us a like and a subscribe. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions around making big decisions like this within your financial plan. Always happy to be a resource.